The Land Rover kicked up red dust as it rolled across the Kenyan Savanna at dawn. David Kimani, 36 years old, had been a wildlife veterinary ranger for 12 years. He'd seen orphaned elephant calves, poached rhinos, injured cheetahs dragging broken legs through the thornveld. 12 years in the field. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until today. 50 meters ahead, something moved in the middle of the dirt road. At first, David thought it was a pair of baboons, but baboons don't stand that upright. He slowed the Land Rover to 20 kilometers per hour, then 10, then stopped completely. He grabbed his binoculars. What he saw made his hand freeze on the wheel. 2 baby gorillas, mountain gorillas, maybe 8, 10 months old, standing in the middle of the road, alone. No adults anywhere in sight. That was impossible. Gorilla families never leave their young. Ever. The babies were agitated, vocalizing. High-pitched distress calls that echoed across the empty grassland. One of them saw the Land Rover and did something that made David's stomach drop. It ran toward him, directly at the vehicle, arms waving, screaming. David opened the door and stepped out. The baby gorilla, maybe 15 kilograms, dark fur, huge eyes, grabbed his pant leg with both tiny hands and pulled. Hard, dragging him away from the truck. Okay, David said, voice calm. Show me. He grabbed his emergency veterinary kit from the back seat and his radio. The second baby gorilla was already running, 50 meters into the tall grass. The first one let go of David's leg and sprinted after its companion. David followed. They ran 200 meters through dry, golden grass that reached his waist. The heat was already building, 28 degrees Celsius at 6:15 in the morning. The babies moved fast, low to the ground, glancing back every few seconds to make sure David was still following. They knew where they were going. They had a destination. Then David smelled it. Blood. And the sound of flies. Hundreds of them. The babies led him to a cluster of acacia trees. Beneath the largest one, in a pool of shade that wouldn't last another hour, lay a lioness. She was on her side. Adult female. Maybe 6 years old, 140 kilograms. Her breathing was shallow, rapid. Her coat was matted with dried blood and dust. Dark stains covered her left shoulder and flank. Scratches and bite marks, dozens of them, crossed her body. She wasn't moving, but she was alive. David dropped to one knee 3 meters away. The 2 baby gorillas didn't hesitate. They ran straight to the lioness. One of them, the larger one, wrapped both arms around her neck. The smaller one pressed against her belly, and then the larger baby turned, looked directly at David, and pushed its tiny hand toward the lioness's side. The gesture was unmistakable. Help her. David keyed his radio. Nairobi base, this is Kimani. I need the vet unit. Now. I've got a lioness, adult female, severe trauma, and 2 baby mountain gorillas. I don't have time to explain. Just send the team. Static crackled. Then a woman's voice. Kimani, we're 90 minutes out. The roads are bad from last night's rain. Can you stabilize? David looked at the lioness. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her gums, when he checked, were pale. Shock. Blood loss. Dehydration. She doesn't have 90 minutes. He ended the transmission and opened his kit. Then he heard it. A sound that turned his blood cold. Laughter. High-pitched. Manic. Hyenas. Maybe 200 meters away. And getting closer. They're coming back. It had started 9 hours earlier. The Virunga Mountains sat on the border between Congo, Rwanda, and Uganda. Dense jungle. steep volcanic slopes, home to some of the last mountain gorillas on Earth. A family group of 12 had been moving through the lower elevations, descending toward the savanna boundary. They were running, fleeing, poachers, 3 men with rifles and spotlights, hunting gorilla infants for the illegal wildlife trade. A baby mountain gorilla could sell for $40,000 on the black market. The family scattered in the chaos. Gunshots, screams, lights sweeping through the trees. 2 babies, brothers, maybe 10 months old, ran in the wrong direction, away from the mountains, into open country. By the time the sun rose, they were alone, lost, in territory they didn't understand. That's when the Lioness found them. Her name, if anyone had bothered to give her one, might have been Zara. She was a loner, expelled from her pride 3 weeks earlier after losing a dominance fight with another female. She'd been hunting alone ever since, unsuccessfully. 4 days without food, hunger gnawing at her ribs, desperation making her reckless. She caught their scent at 11:30 that night. Small, vulnerable, prey. She tracked them to a thicket of acacia scrub. They were huddled together beneath the lowest branches, shivering, terrified. The larger one saw her first. Instead of running, he placed himself in front of his brother, arms spread, a wall of 15 kilograms trying to protect 10. Zara stopped. She was 3 meters away, close enough to strike. The babies didn't move. They stared at her, dark eyes, wide, helpless, waiting for the end. And something in Zara broke. She'd had cubs once, 5 months ago, 2 of them, males, born in the dry season when prey was scarce and competition was brutal. A nomadic male had found her den while she was hunting. When she returned, they were dead, necks broken. The nomad had killed them to bring her back into estrus, to erase another male's bloodline and replace it with his own. She'd carried their bodies to a termite mound and sat with them for 2 days, until the smell became unbearable, until the flies covered everything, until she finally understood they weren't coming back. She looked at the 2 baby gorillas, orphaned, alone, waiting to die. She lay down, 5 meters away, not close enough to threaten, close enough to be seen. The babies watched her. Minutes passed. Then the smaller one moved, slowly, crawling. It reached her, touched her paw. She didn't move. It curled against her side. Then the larger one followed. They pressed against her belly, her warmth, her heartbeat. And they slept. At 3 in the morning, the hyenas came, 6 of them, a hunting clan. They'd been tracking Zara for 2 days, waiting for her to make a kill so they could steal it. Instead, they found her with 2 strange, small creatures that smelled like easy meat. They circled. Zara stood, placed herself between the hyenas and the babies. She roared, a warning. The hyenas laughed, 6 against 1. The math was simple. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Zara killed one outright, crushed its spine with her jaws, injured 2 others badly enough that they retreated. But the remaining 3 pressed the attack. They had numbers, they had stamina, and Zara was already weak from hunger. She took wounds, deep bites to her shoulder, tearing claws across her flank, a gash on her rear leg. But she didn't fall. She didn't retreat. Every time a hyena got close to the babies, she threw herself in the way. Claws, teeth, fury. Finally, the babies did something that saved all of them. They screamed. Not the soft vocalizations of infant gorillas, full-throated guttural roars, the kind mature silverbacks make when defending their families. The sound echoed across the savanna, and the hyenas, who'd never heard anything like it, hesitated. They looked toward the tree line, listening, wondering if a 300-kilogram silverback was about to emerge from the darkness. They decided it wasn't worth the risk. They left. Zara collapsed. The babies stayed with her. When the sun rose and they heard the sound of an engine, they made a choice no wild gorilla should be able to make. They trusted a human, because the lioness who'd saved them was dying, and they couldn't save her alone. That's how David found them. He worked fast. He pressed 2 fingers against Zara's femoral artery. Pulse was there, weak, 45 beats per minute. Normal for a lioness was 60 to 80. He pulled an infrared thermometer from his kit and aimed it at her ear canal, 35.8 degrees Celsius. Hypothermia, blood loss. He grabbed the thermal blanket from his pack, metallicized plastic, designed to retain body heat, and draped it over her torso. Then he loaded a syringe with lactated Ringer's solution. 500 milliliters. He pinched the skin between her shoulder blades and injected it subcutaneously. Hydration. It would buy time. Not much, but some. Next, he prepared 2 more injections. Ceftriaxone, a broad-spectrum antibiotic, 2 grams, and meloxicam, an anti-inflammatory painkiller. He administered both intramuscularly into her hind leg. She flinched. Barely. Too weak to do more. He pulled rolls of gauze and elastic bandages from the kit. He wrapped her shoulder, her flank, her leg. Compression bandages. Not to close wounds. He couldn't do that here. Not safely. But to slow bleeding. To stabilize. To keep her alive until the helicopter arrived. The 2 baby gorillas watched from 2 meters away. The larger one made a low sound in its throat every time David moved too quickly. Protective. Defensive. David spoke without looking at them. I'm helping her. I promise. The smaller one crept forward, reached out, touched David's hand. Just for a second. Then pulled back. Trust. Fragile. Tentative. But there. That's when the laughter started again. Closer this time. 150 meters. Maybe less. David stood. He could see them now. 5 hyenas, emerging from the tall grass in a loose arc. Flanking. Encircling. They'd come back. And this time there was an injured lioness, 2 helpless babies, and 1 unarmed human. Easy prey. David grabbed his radio. Base, I need help. The hyenas are back. I don't have a weapon. I don't have... Kimani, hold on. We're 45 minutes out. I don't have 45 minutes. He dropped the radio, looked around. Dry grass, rocks, acacia branches. He grabbed an armful of dead wood and piled it 5 meters in front of Zara. Pulled his lighter from his pocket. Touched the flame to the driest stalks. The fire caught. Small. Weak. But it was something. The hyenas stopped at 30 meters. Fire. Predators hated fire. They paced, tested, circled, looking for an angle. David fed more branches into the flames. The fire grew, 40 centimeters high, enough to create a barrier. Barely. But the hyenas were patient, and David was running out of fuel. Then the forest moved. It started as a sound, deep, guttural, a vocalization that didn't belong to any animal David recognized. The hyenas heard it too. They stopped circling, turned toward the tree line, ears forward, tense. And then she appeared. A mountain gorilla. Female. Adult. 180 kilograms of solid muscle. 1.5 meters tall. Her fur was dark, almost black, and her eyes scanned the scene with an intelligence that made David's breath catch. She saw the 2 babies. She saw the lioness. She saw David. and she saw the hyenas. The babies screamed, not in fear, in recognition. They ran toward her. She grabbed them, pulled them close, smelled them, touched their faces, checked their bodies for injuries. They were fine, safe, alive. Then the larger baby pointed. At the lioness, at David. He vocalized. A series of sounds David didn't understand, but the mother clearly did. She looked at Zara, then at David, then at the hyenas, and she understood. The hyenas saw an opportunity. A gorilla distracted by her young. They advanced. 20 meters, 15, spreading out, coordinating. The mother gorilla moved. She pushed the babies behind her, toward David, toward the lioness. Then she turned to face the hyenas, and she beat her chest. The sound was like thunder, a drum roll that echoed across the grassland. She roared, not a cat's roar, a primal guttural bellow that shook the air. Then she charged. She covered 15 meters in 3 seconds, picked up a rock, 15 kilograms of solid stone, and hurled it at the lead hyena. It hit. The hyena went down, stunned. She didn't stop. She ran at the next two, arms wide, teeth bared. 180 kilograms of rage moving at 30 kilometers per hour. The hyenas broke. They scattered, ran. A gorilla was bigger, stronger, and infinitely more terrifying than a wounded lioness. The math had changed. It wasn't worth it. They disappeared into the grass. The mother gorilla stood her ground for another 30 seconds, watching, waiting, making sure they were gone. Then she turned, walked back, sat down between her babies, David, and the lioness. She was breathing hard, but she was calm, alert, protective. David didn't move. He barely breathed. "Thank you," he whispered. She looked at him, just for a moment. Then she looked away, toward the horizon, listening, guarding. 15 minutes later, the sound of rotor blades broke the silence. The helicopter came in low from the south, white and green, Kenya Wildlife Service. It settled 60 meters away, rotors kicking up a storm of red dust. 4 people jumped out. Dr. Sarah Mwangi led the team. She was 42, 20 years as a large animal vet, and she'd seen a lot of impossible things in her career. But not this. She stopped 10 meters from David, took in the scene. A ranger, a wounded lioness, 2 baby mountain gorillas, and a fully grown female gorilla sitting like a sentry over all of them. "David," she said slowly, "what the hell happened here?" He told her. 90 seconds. The babies, the hyenas, the fight, the mother's arrival, all of it. Sarah listened, didn't interrupt. When he finished, she looked at the mother gorilla. "Is she going to let us work?" "I think so," David said. "She understands we're helping." Sarah nodded. "Okay, let's move fast." She knelt beside Zara, checked her pulse, her breathing, lifted the bandages David had applied, and examined what lay beneath without removing them. She didn't describe what she saw. She didn't need to. Her face said enough. "She's lost a lot of blood, but she's stable. We can work with this." Sarah loaded a syringe with a sedative, ketamine and medetomidine, a low dose, just enough to relax Zara without shutting her down completely. She injected it into the lioness's thigh. Within 8 minutes, Zara's breathing slowed. Her muscles loosened. She was still conscious, but calm, manageable. The team worked. They replaced David's field bandages with proper dressings, started an IV line, pushed fluids, administered more antibiotics, more painkillers. 25 minutes. Efficient, professional. The whole time, the mother gorilla watched. She didn't move, didn't interfere, but she watched. When they were done, Sarah injected the reversal agent, atipamezole. It counteracted the sedative. Zara's eyes opened. She blinked, looked around, saw David, saw the vet team, saw the gorillas. She tried to stand. Sarah put a hand on her shoulder. "Easy, girl. You're safe now." Zara settled, lay back down. Her gaze found the two baby gorillas. They crept forward, slowly. The mother gorilla let them. They reached Zara, touched her paw, her face. She lifted her head just enough to lick the larger one's hand. A goodbye. Sarah looked at David. "We need to get her to the rehab center. Now." David nodded. "What about them?" He gestured to the gorillas. "They need to go back to the mountains," Sarah said. "Back to their family." The mother gorilla stood. She vocalized. Low, gentle. The babies looked at her, then at Zara, then back at their mother. They were torn, confused. The lioness had protected them, kept them alive. But this was their real family, their real home. The mother called again, firm, insistent. The babies went to her. She picked them up, one in each arm. She looked at Zara one last time. The lioness looked back. It wasn't submission. It wasn't dominance. It was something else. Acknowledgement, respect, maybe even gratitude. Then the mother gorilla turned and walked toward the tree line. She stopped at the edge. The babies looked back over her shoulder. The larger one raised a hand, waved, a gesture so human it made David's throat tighten. Then they disappeared into the forest. Sarah exhaled. "Did that just happen?" "I have no idea," David said. "But you got it on camera, right?" "Every second." 6 weeks later, David stood at the edge of the Mara Conservancy and watched a lioness move through the tall grass. She was healthy, strong. Her coat gleamed in the afternoon sun. The wounds had healed. Scars remained, faint lines across her shoulder and flank. But they didn't slow her down. She'd been reintroduced to a new territory 3 weeks earlier. A wildlife corridor between two protected areas. Good prey density. Low human conflict. And, surprisingly, she'd been accepted by an established pride. Rare for an older female, but it had happened. David had been monitoring her remotely through the tracking collar she wore. Her behavior had changed. She was more protective of the pride's cubs than any lioness he'd ever observed. Aggressively so, as if she'd been given a second chance at motherhood and refused to waste it. And there was one other change, documented, verified, reviewed by 3 independent researchers. She no longer hunted primates, baboons, vervets, colobus monkeys. She avoided them entirely. When the pride chased a troop of baboons, she held back. When a young male killed a vervet, she didn't feed. She just walked away. No one could explain it. Behavioral shift following trauma, maybe. Or something deeper. Something science didn't have words for yet. 400 kilometers to the north, in the Virunga Mountains, a family of mountain gorillas moved through the forest. 12 individuals, a silverback, 3 adult females, and a handful of juveniles and infants. Among them, 2 young males, 10 months old when they'd been lost, 14 months old now, healthy, integrated, thriving. The larger one, the researchers had started calling him Keto, exhibited unusual behavior. He didn't startle at the distant roar of leopards, didn't flee when the family encountered lions in the lower valleys. He would stop, listen, watch, as if searching for something familiar in the sound. The younger one, Amara, stayed closer to his mother. But every few days, he would climb to the highest branch he could reach and stare south, toward the savanna, toward the grasslands that stretched beyond the mountains, and he would sit there, quiet, still, for hours. Their mother watched them. She knew what they were doing. She understood what they'd survived. And she let them remember. Because some bonds don't break, even when they should, even when they make no sense. On a Tuesday morning in late September, a documentary crew filming Zara captured something no one expected. She was resting beneath an acacia tree, the same kind of tree where David had found her months before. The camera operator was adjusting the zoom when he saw movement in the distant mountains. He panned right, focused, enhanced. 3 silhouettes, on a ridge, too far to identify with certainty. But the shape was unmistakable. A large gorilla, 2 smaller ones beside her. The camera operator called to the director. "You seeing this?" They were. They filmed for 6 minutes. The gorillas didn't move. And then, as if on cue, Zara lifted her head. She looked toward the mountains, toward the ridge. She stood, stared. For 30 seconds, she didn't move, didn't blink. Then she lay back down, closed her eyes. And in that moment, something passed between the mountain and the savanna. Something the cameras couldn't capture. Something the researchers couldn't quantify. But everyone who watched the footage felt it. In the end, Zara didn't save 2 baby gorillas because she was supposed to. She saved them because she understood what it meant to lose everything. She knew what it felt like to be alone, to be cast out, to have nothing left but the instinct to protect something smaller and more fragile than yourself. The hyenas had taken her pride. The gorillas had given her purpose. And maybe that's what compassion really is. Not helping because it's easy. Not helping because you'll be rewarded. But helping because you remember. Because you know. Because you've been there. And you refuse to let someone else suffer the way you did. Species don't matter. Family doesn't matter. Only one thing does. Protecting the innocent. Even when, especially when, no one else will.
The time to act is now. Together, we can protect this land. Please subscribe and join us.